EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365. Wrapping up and starting off the new year strong after yesterday's show. Appreciate everybody being here today. Johnny Mac, how you doing in this Thursday morning, brother?
Doing well. Trying to get through this last week to get to someplace that actually matters.
Yeah,
but you got to go through the motions. So we got to play one more. Week 18, New York Giants. Yes. Woo.
A little bit of a snooze fest on this last week, Johnny Mac, but we're gearing up. We're gearing up for the playoffs, which should be good. I'm going to welcome everybody into Birds 365. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's John McMullen, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town. We'll have Mike Gill on a little bit later on in the show, but a couple things we got to talk about here right away in the open. John, it was confirmed yesterday. Big injury report came out yesterday, but it was also confirmed yesterday that they would rest the starters. Saquon Barkley spoke about it. Nick Sirianni spoke about it. What's your takeaways on where we at with it? There's a couple things I want to ask you about, but first, before I do that, I do want to get just your general feel of where you are after Saquon spoke and the decision to sit the starters.
Well, I thought it was a no-brainer, and I thank Nick Sirianni on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, for stopping the nonsense early. But that was optimistic. I'm usually not an optimistic person. Generally I take the adversarial viewpoint, and I'm like, yeah, why did I think that would stop it? It's just, people just want to be right. I think, Mike Gill says that we're going to talk to Mike. He says that all the time. I think he's right. I mean, this is crazy that this is even a debate. It really is. It's a complete waste of time. I always talk about, people that watch this show know this is the least, I say it all the time, this is the least stat-based game of all the modern sports. I wish we didn't even have to talk about stats. But then when you conflate it with going to the Super Bowl or your ultimate goal, it's even more stupid. It just doesn't make any sense. And coming up last year when they lost A.J. Brown in Week 18, when they did have a little bit to play for, and by that I mean there was at least a slight chance that Dallas could lose in Week 18. So you play your guys. To me, it's pretty clear. If there were a slight chance this year that the Eagles could have gotten a number one seed, they would play their guys and then likely pull them, and you cross your fingers that nobody gets hurt before they get pulled if things are not going your way, and it becomes clear you're not going to get what you desire to get. Such an easy decision. To the point where guys like Joe Banner are out there saying, why are you even talking about this? It's such an easy decision for them. And they made the decision, and I think most people get it, but you have this entrenched group that is like, I saw one national pundit say Saquon Barkley has earned this. Saquon Barkley has earned this. I'm like, what Saquon Barkley and his teammates have earned is far more important, and that's the right to go after a Super Bowl championship. And Saquon himself, when people were trying to bait him in, does it mean more to do it against the Giants? Where he went? I got nothing. This is exactly what he said. At the end of the day, I got nothing but love and respect for those guys over there. There's a lot of trainers, coaches, strength guys that helped me out with my ACL, helped me out with my injuries, and I wouldn't be the player I am today without those guys. The vast majority of people up with the New York Giants, again, the support staff, the people that helped them through every week, the guy freaking loves. There's probably one guy, he even loves John Mara. There's one guy he doesn't like. Joe Shane. And that's the nature of being a GM.
Yeah, right.
It's such bullshit. I don't get it. I don't get it. Earn the right. You can go back to preseason. He said it dozens of times. Nick Sirianni. This is the ultimate team game. Long before Saquon was making a run at this rushing record. And then if you want to go back to the preseason, and I put that dangle carrot in front of people, would you rather have Saquon break the rushing record, who, again, the vast majority wouldn't even know what it was or who Eric Dickerson was because it happened 40 years ago, or win a Super Bowl? And then you have the group that says, well, there's no guarantee the odds are against it. The odds are always against you winning the Super Bowl. The odds are against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings, the Philadelphia Eagles, anybody. It's always against you because so many things have to go right to win a Super Bowl. But you're trying to increase your odds of winning the Super Bowl. And guess what? If Saquon Barkley gets hurt in a meaningless game in Week 18, that decreases your odds. This was an easy decision for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. It's not one of those decisions where I would crush somebody. It's just one of those things where I think it was Mike Sealski who said it best for me. He basically encapsulated exactly how I feel. He's like, I'm not going to crush the team. It makes sense why they did this. I'm just more disappointed that there's no shot at history here being had. But anyway, I don't disagree. John, what do you think of Saquon Barkley's comments? Because I do think when he spoke, and this is just my opinion, just how I read the situation, doesn't have to be how everybody reads it, but looked like Saquon wanted it a little bit. You could kind of see it in his eyes that he wanted it. I don't know if that's right or wrong. I'm not Saquon. I didn't speak to Saquon. I didn't talk to him about it. I'm just listening to what he had to say. And I think he kind of sat back and realized I have a chance at NFL immortality here. And I'm not going to get it because it's a team game. I don't think he's wrong. But I think there is a little bit of a battle as a person, right? I mean, there personally where you're
there is a battle. There is a battle with human nature because
right, the human nature battle, exactly.
We're all selfish, and he used that term, so I'm not saying anything. But at the end of the day, he regresses to, Saquon is very honest. So of course he wants it.
Right.
Why wouldn't he? He's talked about Eric Dickerson not wanting him to break it. He said the same thing. Why would he want me to break it? People are inherently selfish, but the ones who succeed in a team environment are the ones that can push that down more than the others who can't push it down. And he's one of the ones that can push it down. He's more upset about his family. His family's very excited about him potentially breaking the record. But at the end of the day, he understands there's larger goals. And I'm sure he sits there and you go back to the first Giants game, the moment that went viral. He talked about that. And he said, let the young boys eat. When he and how many games he got pulled from because the Eagles were winning. He might have already broken the record.
Yeah.
So all this, that is the point where the imaginary demarcation line, it doesn't matter. Lane Johnson brought up watching Barry Sanders' documentary. Barry could have done it a bunch of times, didn't care. Barry was a rare cat, man. If you remember, for those who, he's the guy who would score touchdowns and hand the ball to the official. Didn't celebrate, didn't do anything. He was hyper-focused on the team aspect of the game. Could have broken the record many times. Lane was talking about, not many times, but a few times. And he for different reasons, he begged off. And Lane said, he could have had it. Eric Dickerson has it. Somebody will break it eventually when they go to 18 games. It might be Saquon. It might be somebody else. At the end of the day, again, the contextual aspect of it, he can already have it. And Saquon, because of his competitiveness, is already looking at Terrell Davis's all-time record when you include the playoffs, which is like 24 or something. So that's his new goal. I wouldn't worry about Saquon Barkley.
John, the other thing that put my antenna up yesterday, Eagles put out an injury report. Nothing crazy on there. They're obviously resting a lot of players, which is good. We didn't have a bye week member since week 5, everybody. So it is good to get these guys some rest. right now before the playoffs. But Jalen Hurts is still in the concussion protocol, John. Where's your head at on that? Any concern about that? It does seem to be a little bit long. And then the other guy who was the other guy who got a concussion versus the Commanders? Was it Sidney Brown?
Will Shipley.
Will Shipley. He's cleared from the protocol, right? So that both got concussions on the same day. Jalen is not cleared. Shipley is. What do you make of where that situation is?
I make it's easy to manipulate the concussion protocol. And the Eagles don't want to play Jalen Hurts.
Right.
And they do want to play Will Shipley.
This is what I was wondering, because I was thinking the concussion protocol is all league decided, so they couldn't really manipulate this. Maybe they could manipulate the rest, but not the protocol. So I'm wrong about that.
Boy, I'm going to get in trouble for this. But, you know, people, it's junk science. It's ridiculous. It's the concussion protocol. It is league mandated. The Eagles can't control it. I should say more specifically, the player can control it. Like I can start in the concussion protocol and report symptoms. I got a headache. I got this. I got that. To slow it down, you could wake up and say, "Oh, I turned the light on and it bothered me."
Yeah.
Bang. That's it. That's it. You just slowed it down. They don't want to play Jalen Hurts. They want to play Will Shipley. So, yeah, I would not be an inkling concerned about that. Inkling. Now, if something happens like with Tua, I get, that much more serious fencing type thing. They call it, that didn't happen with Jalen Hurts. I'm not trying to downplay. People are going to get upset. McMullen's downplaying concussions. I'm not downplaying that. What I'm downplaying is this nonsensical belief that doctors know immediately when somebody is cleared or somebody's not cleared or somebody's ready to play. There's still a lot that is unknown about that particular issue. And the protocol itself is easy to manipulate. Easy.
Makes sense. Any other concern with injuries, John, at this point for this team? With where they are, the injury report that came out yesterday?
No. I mean, very healthy Dallas Goedert. That's the biggest news. Got his 21-day practice window started. So Dallas probably isn't going to play this week. But he should be ready for the playoffs, which is exactly the goal when they put him on injured reserve. That's probably the biggest news. I guess, CJ Uzama went on injured reserve. So they have some tight end issues as far as depth. Now it'll be EJ Jenkins by himself as that tight end 3. But Dallas will be back. So that bumps Grant Calcaterra down to 2 and be back for the playoffs. But this week it might be a little bit of a problem. They might have to make a move on the practice squad. We'll see how that shakes out. Or, it's a meaningless game. You could just play a bunch of 11 personnel. You could play Tyler Steen at tight end. You can do a lot of different things, although Tyler will likely start. So, but you can get through this game because it's not really something you're actively trying to win.
Yeah, we'll see what's going on. This game is going to be a snooze fest, John, and we'll do our best to break it down. I got a good question for you in hour number 2 after we talk to Mike Gill about this game and players to watch, because it will be a good opportunity. I mean, if you're a diehard Eagle fan, which obviously most of Birds 365 Nation is, it's a good opportunity to watch certain players. Not every player you have big expectations for, like an Albert O's not here anymore, but like someone like that you don't care to watch. But a young draft pick, a Trevor Keegan, someone like that, it should be good to.
Or Albert O taking strays, man.
Yeah, he did just take a stray. I just mean like someone like that's been around the bottom of the roster that you don't have any big hopes for the future for a guy like that. You're kind of just waiting for him to get activated at one point or another. But there's some young draft picks out there that I think are worth it, and we'll see what they can do. This week, Johnny.
Yeah, Will Shipley's one of them. Will Shipley's one of them. You get Johnny Wilson, Anaya Smith, some of these guys, maybe Trevor Keegan, who hasn't gotten to play this year. Jalix Hunt, I think it's a big game for Jalix Hunt because he's a guy who needs reps and needs to get better as a part of that rotation on the edge. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. got a little bit of work last week. Although people may not want him to play well, because if he plays too well, they might say, "Yeah, we don't need Zach Bond. Let's just play Jeremiah Trotter Jr. next season." But yeah, there's a lot of interest in Tanner McKee. Everybody's hyped up about Tanner McKee. Get to see him for a full game, most likely. That might be good. It might be bad.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's get to a super chat here, John, before we get to our commercial break. Josh Herman says the MVP discussion yesterday. Currently, Jalen has 14 rushing touchdowns and Saquon Barkley has 13. If Saquon had over 2K rushing yards and let's say he had 20 rushing touchdowns, you think he'd be stronger consideration for MVP? It's a good question because Jalen does get a lot of those touchdowns down at the goal line.
I don't know. Maybe a little bit, but it's a quarterback. It's a quarterback award. Josh Allen's going to win it. And if Josh Allen doesn't win it, Lamar Jackson's going to win it. And if Lamar Jackson doesn't win it and magically Cincinnati gets into the playoffs, Joe Burrow's going to win it.
Joe Burrow's having a crazy season,
yeah.
John.
Saquon Barkley's going to win Offensive Player of the Year. Prohibitive favorite. That's what you should be focused on. Should win it. Will win it. But it was very unlikely that he was ever going to win MVP. And that's not his fault. It is what it is. And it's a quarterback award. And if he had an historic season and it was bad season, and he already has an historic season, but it was a bad season for quarterbacks, maybe you have that outlier. But a bunch of guys have had good seasons, really good seasons at quarterback. And it's down between those three. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, outside shot for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Saquon is getting there. John, let's real quick. I want to go back to Saquon. I got one question on it because I got to admit I'm not as clear cut on this as you. I understand it. It's one of those things I understand, but I can't look past the opportunity that player has. If Saquon Barkley set this record, John, let's just say for a second he did set this record. Because, by the way, to be clear, I don't think he'll ever have a chance to get to pass the record again. Maybe, but I don't think so. You think he'd be a Hall of Famer, a shoo-in for a Hall of Famer?
I think he already is a Hall of Famer.
Saquon?
Yeah.
What? He had 6 pedestrian years in New York. Why would he be a Hall of Famer?
Well, he didn't have 6 pedestrian years. Part of it is reputation. I mean, Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer. Do I think he's a Hall of Famer? Eli Manning? No, I've been that. Yeah. But is he going to be in the Hall of Fame? Yes. Do I think Saquon Barkley is a Hall of Famer right now? No, he's got to do some more. But is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Yes. Because of his reputation and,
he's going to have to do more than one good year in Philly, though.
Yeah. One more, maybe. That's it. And he will. And he probably will. And honestly, even if he doesn't have I still think he's a Hall of Fame player. Now, again, do I think he's a Hall of Fame player at this stage? No. Do I think he will be in the Hall of Fame? Yes. Those are two different conversations. Reputation is a big thing in this league. And his reputation is as this superstar player.
Right.
And he proved to be, and he has been a superstar this year. He was never a superstar in New York, but people thought he was. And he's proven it was because of his shitty supporting cast. So that just bolsters his reputation. Everybody already thought it, so he already is a Hall of Famer. But and I'll wrap it up with this, and we got Mike. Saquon is a big history guy. Like a lot of players don't know even the players that play their own position as far as history goes, as far as greatness goes, as far as Hall of Famers go. Saquon's a big history buff when it comes to the NFL. So he knew Eric Dickerson had the record. Even he spoke yesterday. This is what he said. I always looked at it different. Like Eric Dickerson has the record and you can't take nothing away from him. It's amazing. I think the two most impressive ones would be OJ's because of the amount of games he did it in, and Barry Sanders because of the amount of carries it took him to get to 2,000. Like even he is like, well, I know this is a compilation statistic.
Right.
Barry had a better year. OJ had a better year with a bad team. Maybe a couple other guys. Even he knows it. So
was this a Jeffrey Lurie, though? Was this a Jeffrey Lurie decision, you think? I know they said it came out yesterday. He was consulted on like 8.
Well, it's an organizational decision. Everything, like I said, everything in the Eagles starts with Jeffrey Lurie, and Jeffrey Lurie likes to ask a bunch of questions. Yeah. Let's put it this way. If they said Saquon was going to play for the record, Jeffrey would have asked some questions.
Yeah.
That probably.
What's the thought process that led you to get to this point?
That probably would have deferred people in a different direction. So I'll just leave it like that. But it's an organizational decision. But Nick is smart enough, political enough to know what the organization wants. That's what happened.
Which I don't know. Whatever. Let's get to our commercial break. I see the great Mike Gill. Looking forward to talking to Mike after the break coming up here on Birds 365. Appreciate everybody watching this morning. A good crowd in here already. Happy 2025, everybody. Happy New Year. Hope you guys all had a great New Year's Eve. Stayed safe and enjoyed some time with whoever it is you spent that time with. Appreciate you being here this morning. Let's get to our commercial break. Before I do that, I want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go check them out. It's betus.com.pa and use the promo code on your screen. It's YouTube150. Gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, with Mike Gill on Birds 365.
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of the region's top party bands, performers, and DJs as they take the stage in the heart of the casino action. Great cocktails, live music, and lively moments. It's all happening at Center Bar at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Visit livecasinophilly.com for more details and the complete list of upcoming events. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
We noticed that there was mold creeping into our basement about a year and a half ago, and wanted to make sure that we were getting rid of the problem permanently. We actually reached out to several different contractors to get it resolved, and actually 2 of them recommended Drytech to us as a long-term solution. Other than the noise factor, we wouldn't even know that there was work being done on the basement level. It's really been a clean process for us.
Score and save this football season on your car insurance. Before the next game, save up to 40% on your auto insurance policy. That's right, 40% savings. Call an Audible this season and contact the Del Val Insurance Group. They're an advocate for you, not an insurance company. That means they'll get you the right coverage and save you up to 40%. Call managing partners Fran or Jim of Del Val Insurance, 215-354-0122, or score and save at dvigi.com. dvigi.com.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365, ringing in the new year here. Happy New Year to everybody. Joined now by Mike Gill from 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Mike, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Happy New Year's, boys. What's going on?
Happy New Year, Mike. All right. We're not going to bury the lead with you. We need to hear Mike Gill's thoughts on Nick Sirianni shutting down history. How important it would have been to have the NFL's all-time rushing record. Where's Mike Gill on this manufactured controversy, I would call it?
Yeah, I don't care at all. I really don't need to see Saquon Barkley play in that game. In fact, they gave you the answer to the test immediately when he hit 2,000. They got him out of that game immediately. They could have left him in that game to get another 30, 40, maybe 50 yards, and this day would have been – see, that was why they got him out. They didn't want this to be a 30-yard thing. You know, it was get him out so it's 100, and 100 is like, it's not – you know, you're not automatically getting the 100 yards rushing. But if they would have left him in to keep getting closer to the record and he ends up 30 to 20, yards short, now you really have the pressure to play him. You already have some pressure. I don't think there is pressure internally or anything. Look, do you want him to win the record? Of course you do if you're a fan. It's pretty cool to say our guy is the all-time leading rusher for a single season. But you have to take your best swing at winning the Super Bowl. There's no guarantee that he gets the record. There's no guarantee that he gets hurt. There's no guarantee that you win the Super Bowl. So you have to weigh all of that and take your best swing at the most important of those things, the record or a Super Bowl. And they deemed that the Super Bowl, crazy them, was more important than him winning that record. So you have to take your best swing. And your best swing is having everybody at full health and ready to go. Now, if they would have had a bye week in week 10, would they reconsider this and say, hey, we just had a break 5 weeks, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. Maybe we'll give them a half. I doubt it, but they haven't had a bye since the 5th week of the season. This team has been going. And by the way, they've been pretty healthy all the way through. Some of these guys probably say, listen, I just need to take a day off, and this is the week, unfortunately.
It is, Mike. I'm going to play devil's advocate, though. Yeah, you have a running back here in Philly that has a chance to have more yards in a season than Barry Sanders and Jim Brown and Adrian Peterson and Emmett and all the great running backs that have ever come through the NFL. You have a player in Philly that's on the brink of doing it. I feel for him why he would want to get that. I also understand both sides, but you think this has any chance to maybe mess with the chemistry in the locker room or the morale of the team? I don't think so, but I'm just thinking about, when you have a player that has a chance to do something like this and you kind of squash it. I'm not saying it was the wrong move, but any chance that it affects the morale?
I can't imagine. I mean, a guy like Lane Johnson, he didn't sound too interested in playing. And I don't know that's going to start a revolt that Lane Johnson was on this side. Jordan Mailata might have been like, yeah, it'd be pretty cool. I think the line, that's what you have to consider too, is if you play Saquon, then you have to play all 5 starting offensive linemen with him pretty much. And can you imagine if Lane Johnson ends up somebody rolling into his ankle on a meaningless game and then he can't play? We know what their record is when he doesn't play. Same thing if Landon Dickerson, who's been in and out of the lineup this year. So has Mekhi Becton's been in and out of the lineup. Could you imagine they lose Juergens in this game? They haven't had anybody else snap the ball essentially all season long. So you have to also take into account that all 5 of those guys would likely have to play for Barkley to get to the record. You're not going to throw him out there with the second offensive line to try to go get this record. So, no, I think they probably, A.J. Brown, I think he was pretty clear that. And by the way, we forget because the season was such a disaster at the end of last year. A.J. got hurt playing in a game that had no meaning to it, really, and then wasn't available for the Buccaneer game. So I think a lot of people think, well, they were going to lose the Buccaneer game with or without A.J. I think you would have felt better if he played. Do you want to play Green Bay or Washington with Saquon Barkley compromised? Probably not. So, no, I don't think anybody in there's any. I think look, when they took him out at 2,000, I think they were all on the same page that he was going for 2,000. There's your history. Look, there's a lot of people I'll be 48 next month. I'm assuming there's a lot of people younger than me who don't know who the hell Eric Dickerson is.
I said that, Mike. It's ridiculous.
Or how many? We're acting like all of a sudden. This is funny. I find this to be interesting because it really hasn't been approached in the 40 years. It's been anytime someone gets to 2,000, it's usually late in the year and they don't have a chance to get there. This is the only time that someone's really had a chance to do it. People don't know how many yards Eric Dickerson had or even who he was. Now, if you're a little older in our age range, yes, you know who he is. But I don't even know how many people know the yardage total. This isn't like, a guy hitting 61 home runs or something. We're acting like this is some crazy number that is gone after all the time and everybody fails for it. Quite frankly, I was like, man, Eric Dickerson, by the way, is my favorite back of all time. I love Dickerson. 2105. Okay, great. I don't know how many people even knew that. Then all of a sudden people were acting like this is like the Maris home run record that he's approaching here.
Mike, I said the same thing. Great minds think alike. If you ask people Eric Dickerson before the season, the vast majority of Eagles fans are like, who's that? It's not that, there's these great viral videos. I don't know if you've seen them. They go up to fans dressed crazily, like rabid. I saw one with Joe Burrow. Rabid Cincinnati fans. I saw one with Jalen Hurts. Rabid Eagles fans dressed to the nines. I'm a hardcore fan. And they asked him a simple question. In the case of Cincinnati, it was, where did Joe Burrow go to college? And the vast majority have no freaking idea. Yeah. No idea. So
he started at one school and then he transferred to another.
Well, yeah, you got two chances. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. They did the same thing. Vast majority of these people dressed up don't even know where Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I just feel like in 5 years from now, if Saquon Barkley is the single season rushing record, I don't know. It kind of go,
But I use the same example, except I use 714, 755. You could use 61. Everybody knows these numbers. They were historic records. Nobody knew 2105 until we started writing about it.
Yes, exactly. Like if I was to say right now, who's the single season receiving record? I don't know that half the people watching have any idea what the number is, who it is. So I think it's just because it's just happening right now. You want your guy to get it. Now, I said at the beginning of the year, look, when they signed Saquon to the money that they did, I said, look, you had a guy last year who had over 1,000. You had Miles Sanders who had over 1,200. You had to really make a splash with, like I said, the number for total yards probably had to be around 1,800 yards to kind of justify the ROI that you signed him for. You've gotten the ROI and some. You've made history that he's gone over 2,000 yards. I mean, there should be no complaining other than, hey, let's take our best swing at trying to win a Super Bowl. Even if Barkley plays in the game, he hasn't had a week off since week 5. And he goes into that game, and maybe he's just a little sore, maybe a little slowed down. I was listening to an interview the other day with Wilbert Montgomery. He was on our station down the shore, and he was saying that after a 14-game, he was talking about the Dallas game where he runs, obviously, and makes history and goes to the Super Bowl. He said, by the time I got to that game, I wasn't even the same running back. I was so beat up and just beat down. And this was in conversation of going for the record. This is like 2-3 weeks ago. So even after the 14 games, he's like, I wasn't even the same running back in the playoff game that I was earlier in the season, just because of the beating that you take through the course of the year. So imagine Barkley playing in another game after not being off since week 5. Why not just let him be as fresh and ready to go as he can be, him and everybody. It's not just Barkley either. That's the part of it. We're acting like this is just a Barkley thing. That record belongs to the line, it belongs to Barkley, and they all have to play an extra game to achieve it.
Yeah, I saw one national person say Saquon's earned the right to do this. And I'm like, to your point, Mike, no. He's earned the right, along with Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why Nick Sirianni calls it the ultimate team game. Think about this season for Saquon Barkley. It's generally been a second-half season. What if you're at 50 yards in meaningless week 18 at halftime? Then what do? You got to roll out Lane Johnson and company in the second half again?
Right. Yeah, it's
not even a
not to mention, and I don't this has been going around as well. He would be playing an extra game. How does that factor into the conversation? Now, I've seen a lot of, and I looked at this too. He has less carries than Dickerson does at this point of the season. So theoretically, he would have less carries and more yards than Dickerson potentially. But he would have done it in an extra game, the whole extra. Now, Dickerson did it in 2 extra games over OJ, and not a lot of people seem to care about that. So maybe the extra game wouldn't matter all that much. But that would also be part of the conversation now, as well as, well, he got the record, but he had an extra game. And the Eagles are saying, we don't need any of that conversation. We're going to win a Super Bowl here. So kudos to Nick Sirianni and the organization for being the adults in the room and making this type of decision.
Yeah. And Saquon himself, by the way, which I thought this was ironic because Saquon is a big history buff and he knows these numbers and he knows these records. And he was talking about the record and he said, I think the 2 most impressive ones would be OJ's because of the amount of games he did it in, and Barry, and he's talking about 2,000-yard seasons, Barry Sanders, because of the amount of carries it took for him to do it, which was like 335, ridiculous. Even he knows, all right, Eric Dickerson's had the record, but people have had better seasons. OJ had a better season. Barry had a better season. Maybe AP had a better season. People have had better seasons. All you're talking about is a compilation number, which so many things have to come into context for it. Not saying it's not important, but when measured against the other goal, it's ridiculous that anybody's talking about it. And that's directly from the mouth of Saquon Barkley. OJ, Barry had better seasons. So who cares?
Yeah.
Saquon, by the way, could already have the record if he didn't sit the first time they played the Giants, or he didn't sit in the other games, because you'll notice, I've also brought this up, Mike, the people that get that far tend to be on either mediocre teams or slightly above average teams. They're not on really good teams, because really good teams like the Eagles do what the Eagles have done. They sit guys at the end of blowouts. They rest guys at the end of seasons. So, in a lot of ways, Saquon has already had a better season than Eric Dickerson.
Yeah, and look, even last week when he got to 2003, they pulled him immediately. They could have left him out there and kept on running him for, another, who knows what he would have got. He might have approached another 30, 40, 50 yards last week had they left him in the game against a Dallas team that if it wasn't for just 5 plays, guys, that game was pretty close, according to Michael Parsons. But you have a game that's completely out of hand. If you really wanted him to get this single-season record, you had a chance last week to continue to let him pad his yardage, and they made the decision right there and then that was it.
Yeah.
Mike, where you at on Jalen Hurts, man? He's missed now two. He missed 2 games. He's gonna miss obviously the final game. Not gonna play him in this game. He's gonna have 3 games off. I think it's gonna be like 23 days before he'll have off before he returns for the playoffs. Any concern with that, or where's your head at on Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to have seen him play probably last week in that game and get the chance and then sit out this week. I don't think he'll play this week. But, yeah, I definitely think, especially with the timing, the way that this offense runs on timing with him in the run game, and that's why the run game is so successful. It's been part of the big reason for Saquon's season is the role that Jalen has in that as well. We saw him get some timing down in the past game, and then we never really got to see it again as he went out early in the Washington game. So, yeah, and this happened to him a couple of years ago where he did play in that Giant game in Week 18, and then, in the playoffs he went on to play. But, yeah, I definitely think that that's unfortunate, and that's another reason. I mean, he ran the ball, went down, got hit in the head, and we haven't seen him in a couple weeks. That could happen to anybody in this game if they play on Sunday. Jalen Hurts, an innocent carry. Saquon Barkley, an innocent carry up the right sideline, and on his way, bang, somebody's helmet hits him, and he's out for a concussion protocol, and we don't see him in the playoffs. So, there's definitely some thoughts about Jalen not being available. Even if that's another thing. If he wasn't available or cleared, okay, it's one thing if now is he cleared yet?
No, he's not.
No,
cleared.
he's not cleared.
Yeah, so that's I think even the more thoughtful thing is, man, most of these guys get through the protocol. They're right there.
I
couldn't play last week, and now what's that?
I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't worry. It's easy
right. I'm not. I'm just saying if he did not get cleared for this game, not that they were going to play him in this game, but that would be 2 weeks that he could not get through the protocol, which I know we kind of just now think is like a fait accompli, that you get a concussion, you get through the protocol, you're ready to go like a week later. But if he didn't, you would be saying, man, a guy sitting out for not getting cleared for now 2 straight weeks is a little bit odd.
Yeah, I agree. And the last time you mentioned, Mike, the last time he did that was 2022 when he returned for Week 18. He didn't really have his best games in Week 18 or the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. If you remember, they destroyed the Giants, and Jalen didn't really have to do much in that game. And then Brock Purdy got knocked out of the conference championship game, and Jalen didn't have to do much. Now we obviously saw him have an exceptional Super Bowl, but I do wonder if he'll come out a little slow, in the start of the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if he misses now. I mean, he missed most of the Washington game. I mean, virtually after the first series, he got knocked out. And then the next 2 games, so you're going 3 straight weeks of not having any action out there. So, yeah, you would imagine. And it's a shame because it was right when he was, is that what you all wanted to see? And then he got hurt. So, it's an unfortunate situation. But, Green Bay, a likely opponent.
They start slow, too.
Right. Well, and they've had, I think, Jair Alexander. I think he's out for the year now, right?
Yeah.
They put him on the.
He might go back. He might be able to get back to the Super Bowl if they make it that far. But he certainly.
So you wouldn't see him in that first game. And this is a team that on opening night you ran the ball pretty successfully again. You also had some big shots down the field against them that opening night as well. So it would be unfortunate for Jalen, but. This is why they are doing what they're doing. They have plenty of other options that they don't need Jalen to be the guy he was in the Super Bowl. And by the way, I see a lot of people concerned about playing Washington or Green Bay, and I'm thinking, man, I know they're both solid wild card level teams, but if you're worried about playing either one of them, do you really think this team can win a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
It's the playoffs. You're going to play a difficult team.
That's true.
How you get through Detroit or Minnesota if you're worried about Washington and Green Bay.
I definitely think the Minnesota thing has now entered people's minds more than it did maybe 3 weeks ago, that people are now taking them a lot more serious.
Sam Darnold, baby. Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, interesting. You think about a guy who was a 2nd or 3rd overall pick in the draft. Wasn't it it was the Barkley draft.
Yeah. He deserved to be the 3rd overall pick.
Right, but a lot of people wanted the Giants to take the quarterback and said, why are you taking a running back that high in the draft? And, of course, Darnold, the other argument was always, well, there was no real quarterback that even to take in that draft, and none of those quarterbacks really ended up making it. Now here's Darnold. He's been with the Jets, Carolina, San Francisco, and he's finally kind of blossoming here in Minnesota. But, I think that has Darnold won people over enough to believe in the Vikings?
No, he's not but people, how people are, Mike. They want to be right. You're the one. I just mentioned that before you came on. They want to be right, and they put the period on Sam Darnold's career. He's a bust because it was interesting. I heard Kevin O'Connell say this earlier, and I love the quote, so I've been using it. And he said, organizations fail young quarterbacks more than young quarterbacks fail organizations, which I agree with wholeheartedly. And the assumption is because he failed, we now know what the New York Jets organization is. Never really got a chance anywhere else, had the 4-0 start the 1 year with Carolina. Again, a terrible organization. And all of a sudden he shows up in Minnesota after a year, by the way, learning with Kyle Shanahan, which helped. And by the way, Kyle Shanahan, I guarantee you, is kicking himself for not standing up and saying, this guy's better than freaking Brock Purdy. I'm sorry. He's kicking himself. And now he's got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Aaron Jones. And all of a sudden he can play magically. Supporting cast, good coach, quarterback builder. Josh McCown's there as well. Bang. Always had that top-tier talent. If people don't believe in him, they should believe in him.
Well, and I'll tell you what, now in hindsight, you look back, if Minnesota wins the game on Sunday night, they become the one. The Lions are now the wild card 5 seed.
5.
And going the path of going back through the playoffs on that side of the bracket becomes very interesting.
Yeah.
That it could be another match, and then if you were the 1 seed, you get stuck playing Detroit again in the playoffs, as opposed to Philly being the 2 seed and getting the winner of that West South game.
Yeah.
I wondered, Mike, if the Eagles were in a better spot. I mean, if you're the Vikings and the Lions, you're going in, you got a big game in week 18. Everything's on the line for the 1 seed. If you're the loser of that game, Mike, you're coming out like –
the way I kind of looked at it
versus the Eagles, Mike, they're sitting high. They're like, okay, week 18, we're resting everybody. We already know we're playing the Commanders or the Packers. We're ready to go for the playoffs.
Right, and that's why the key was beating Dallas so that you can – this is your bye week right here. This is your bye. Get yourself ready and go win your 4 games. Whereas the other teams, they're still playing. One of them is going to get the bye, the other's not, but the team that gets the bye is going to have to face that team most likely again. So that makes it a lot more difficult to face the same team that close together, a division possible. So that one, the team that wins the number 1 route, their route actually gets a little cloudier than it sounds when you're like, hey, you get the 1 seed, you get that bye, you get that home game, you get that week off.
I want the bye, man.
The Eagles are getting the bye this week.
Yeah, but it's not a real bye. I'm talking about, I guarantee you, the number 1 seed, Kansas City, and I think Detroit's going to beat Minnesota. So, for sake of argument, Kansas City and Detroit, I guarantee one thing: they're not losing on Wild Card Weekend. No way.
I agree. I agree with that too. That they're not losing on Wild Card Weekend. Now, don't you think the Lions would like to have the bye?
They're getting a bye.
Oh, you think they're going to win, right?
Yeah.
So they're getting. But my point is, if
like
Minnesota
beat, Mike,
what's that?
Who do you like, Lions or Vikings in that game?
I tend to like the Lions a little bit better, although I do think that their defense is starting to show that the war of attrition is starting to catch up to them. They still have a lot of their offensive pieces. They did lose Montgomery, but they still have Gibbs and the receivers they have. Their offensive line, much like the Eagles, is the star of the show over there. People don't realize sometimes how good their offensive line is. So their offense is still able, but can they go shootout every single week?
Yes. The answer to that is yes.
Yeah. Well, so I like them against the Vikings in this game on Sunday, and then you get the week off, and you have to play the Vikings again. That makes that a lot more a trickier
Not
game, I think.
Not necessarily, because Tampa's a difficult place to play.
Well, and that's another thing. Playing Tampa's not a walk in the park either. So the team with the 2 seed, I think, has a much better path. Sans the bye.
They definitely have a much better path, and it might be unfair than the 14-team winner that's going to be the 5th seed. Yeah, they're screwed. That's a bad spot. But that number 1, the team that wins, I'd rather be that team. And that's why they're going to fight. And both of those teams are going to fight to be that number 1.
Oh, yeah. I don't think either one of them does not want to. Look, they'd much rather be the 1 than the 5. I'm saying if you look at it, being the 2 seems to be a better spot because you don't need week 18 to play. So you kind of do get your bye here. You have to play the extra game in the playoffs, but the path as the 2 is better than the path as the 1.
Well, that's like Penn State and the BCS.
Well, that thing was a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who from Penn State is running that thing, but they gave them the easiest straw in the history of mankind. But this is the NFL. I don't want to play the Green Bay Packers. If I can avoid it and I can sit at home and watch somebody else.
This Packers team has already proven that they can go on the road and win a playoff game. That's what is appealing. They did it last year against a Dallas team that, we all laugh at Dallas, but had won, 12, 13 games last year. And Green Bay went on the road, and I don't think many people...
at home, averaging 40 points a game at home last year, Dallas.
And
Green Bay destroyed them at AT&T Stadium.
Yep. And you look at, so Green Bay, a team last year was 9-8? I think they were entering the playoffs, so they have no worry about going on the road and trying to win a game. Now, the opposite side is Philly and Green Bay have played. Philly beat them on a neutral site. They feel like, hey, in week 1 we were better than you. We should be better than you as the season matriculated, and we know our team better. But, yeah, it would be a challenging matchup, no question. I think their defense is just kind of average, just like we thought on opening night. That's part of their problem. Their defense is just kind of average. They don't really have the guy in the passing game. They have a bunch of guys. They kind of spread it around. But hey, Washington just beat you a couple weeks ago, right? They had the formula to beat you. Now that game was a little wonky as well. But hey, I think you definitely have the better path than if you were the 1 seed right now. I like the fact I said, look, beat Dallas, get your bye, and then go win 4 games. That's what it comes down to. Get your bye this week, which you got. There's no playing Saquon Barkley. Go back to the beginning of the conversation. There's no need to play Barkley. A.J. Brown, I don't need to see him or Smith. They can all have a nice day off. The offensive line, have a nice night. Let's see if Tanner McKee can sling it a little bit with Johan Dotson. What's Goddard's
big
story?
Dotson game. They started his practice window yesterday. So he'll be back for the playoffs. I don't expect him to play this week.
So get all those guys the week off and take your 4 best swings at it. That's what it comes down to at this stage of the season. And you have the path to get there. You're going to get
I just don't. I'm not going to tie myself in a pretzel, Mike, and convince myself the number 2 seed is better than the number 1. I mean, the Eagles won in 2017. They were the number 1 seed. They made the Super Bowl in 2022. They were the number 1 seed. I mean, it is much easier.
And listen, I totally agree. It makes me feel better that they didn't need to have to play this game. If you would have lost last week and Washington
I agree
wins,
with that. I agree with that.
Right. So them not having to use this game to get a seed, if they would have lost last week and Washington wins, then they had to win this week to get the 2 seed still.
Well, yeah, here's where I agree with you. If there were, and this is what happened last year, there was a slight chance that the Eagles could win the NFC East. Dallas had to lose to a terrible Washington team, and they had to beat the Giants, and they would have won the NFC East. So they played their guys. And what had happened? You talked about AJ. People forget Reed Blankenship got hurt. Didn't play in the playoff game. They missed about 90 tackles in the playoff game. Sidney Brown got hurt. That's when he tore his ACL. So he would have been the backup. They had to go down to Avonte Maddox, move him from corner to play safety. People forget all this and say, oh, well, they were collapsing. And they had a very small window to get a higher seed and be the NFC's champions. And they went for it. And if that would have happened this year, for instance, Minnesota would have had to lose to Green Bay last week. Detroit would have had to lose to San Francisco, essentially, because then he would have had to have Minnesota beat Detroit, and then the Eagles would have been the number 1 seed. Mm-hmm. Very, very small window. Very unlikely to happen, even if everything went right last week. And you'd be playing your players, and who knows, maybe 3 more guys get hurt. Maybe
now,
it's not Saquon.
The question would be if they had beaten Washington and they were still in the mix, I guess they would have been out still, or this wonky strength of victory thing, would that have been coming into play? Because this would have been interesting, too. The NFL likes to play games where you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
They took the Minnesota game, obviously, and it's a standalone game. But if Philly was still in play for the 1
it would have
seed,
been it would have been a 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Philly was still in play for the 1 seed based on strength of victory, because that's what it would have came down to if Minnesota, if Philly had not lost to Washington and they were all still with the same record. Yeah. That would have made it a really interesting decision to see if they would have played Barkley or not, or just said, we don't care, we'll take the 2 seed.
Yeah, I think they probably would have went for it there. Remember, I think the Detroit bye week was 5-2, wasn't it? Weren't they early?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I think I know the Detroit bye week. I don't know if it was exactly 5, but I'm pretty sure it was early in the year too. So that's interesting, man. They're going on a long run. But the NFC playoffs, guys, I'll tell you what, man. That playoff
it was week 5. It was week 5.
Week 5, yeah, I thought it was the same as the Eagles. That NFC playoff picture, though, is a damn good playoff picture.
Well, you think about 4 weeks ago how things changed so much in the NFL. 4 weeks ago, it was the Lions and the Eagles, and then everybody else virtually everywhere. Well, now all of a sudden, Tampa looks like a team that, hey, Tampa, we know they have a ton of talent. Baker Mayfield has always kind of been, he's the Sam Darnold of that team. Do I believe in Baker? Do I not believe in Baker? It's just Baker Mayfield. If he plays well, that team is pretty good. Green Bay is a team I think everybody, even entering the season, had a little bit of fear of. Jordan Love signs the biggest contract ever. They got all these receivers. They won in the playoffs last year. They went toe-to-toe with San Francisco. So people believed in Green Bay, and this goes back to people wanting to be right. You believed in them back in August, so you believe in them now. You want to be right about Green Bay. So that team, and then Minnesota, I think in the last 4 weeks, I think for 13 weeks of the season, you're like, I don't believe in Minnesota. This team won 13 games a couple years ago. They lost to the Giants in the first round. But I think people are starting to take a little bit more notice of them as a legit possibility that they could be a team that makes it to the Super Bowl.
All right, at Mike Gill Show, make sure you follow Mike on the X platform, YouTube, his YouTube channel as well. Listen to him on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN South Jersey. If you're local, does a tremendous job there. Commanders or Packers? Who would you rather play?
Probably Washington. First time in the playoffs for them. Having to go on the road to try to win that first playoff game. I know Jaden's been awesome. He was awesome in that last couple. But I feel like if that game was a little wonky with Hurts getting hurt in the game and just to score 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, I think that's kind of far-fetched to see that happen again in a playoff game on the road. That Washington team, I think, it just has less talent overall. With the quarterbacks being comparable, Love's a different style of quarterback, but I'm just talking about, level of player. So I'll probably take my chances against Washington.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, mostly because of Jordan Love has playoff experience, Jane Daniels doesn't, and I like Vic Fangio in that spot better. But
yeah, and I think Washington, both defenses are just average, but Washington's just they did a really good job against Barkley in the second half of that game. But remember, Hurts got hurt in that game, and that kind of changed the dynamics of the whole run game there. The first time he played Washington, he blitzed them. And by the way, Washington, he is third all-time in the history of the league in yards against an opponent. He has more yards per game against the Washington franchise than any other franchise he's ever played. So, yeah, I think I'll take my chances with Washington if I can. But obviously right now, the chances are you're going to play Green Bay, I think. I've been off. This is my first day back on the air, so I'm a little
it is. You're right. It looks like it's going to be the Packers. It's not definite, but it does look like it's going to be the Packers. All right, Mike, last question then. Anybody you're looking to watch this weekend versus the Giants? Any backup, any bench guy that is giving you some excitement for the game this weekend?
The only guy I think that you might have an eye on is Bryce Huff. Are they going to play him and just try to let him play a game? Just say, go out there and play, man. Go out there, get your snaps, play 40, 50 snaps. Just go rush the passer and see if he could just start teeing off on somebody. Because obviously they signed him to big money. I was not a fan of the signing. It has not worked out. He got hurt. Unfortunate. He came back, made no significance in the game last week. So, yeah, he would be one guy if he gets – now, are they going to play him in the game? I would imagine he would be a guy that would play. On defense, which guys are not going to play? I would imagine Jalen Carter, you don't see him. Probably not Josh Sweat. But, yeah, to say which one guy that I would pick would be Huff to say, all right, let me see him be the star of the defense for 1 week.
Hey, we got the Pro Bowl rosters. If you're interested before you leave, Mike.
Did they give them out?
Yeah, I just got them. Trying to look for the
what is it? The Eagles and Lions against the AFC.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley is a Pro Bowler. Shockingly, joking. Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. Congratulations to Cam Jurgens. Jalen Carter gets the Pro Bowl nod. Zach Baun, well deserved. Glad Zach made it because he deserved it. I don't think I missed anyone.
So no Jalen Hurts, no A.J. Brown, and no Devontae Smith.
No, the Pro Bowl quarterbacks are Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, and Sam Darnold.
Did you say Quinyon Mitchell?
Did I miss Quinyon? No, he did not make it. J.C. Horn, Jalen Johnson, they made the right decision. Best cornerback in the NFL. Nobody knows about it because he plays on
How
Chicago.
does Lotta not make the freaking Pro Bowl?
That's
he
a good
missed
question.
4 weeks, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, he missed 4 weeks.
That's probably why.
I will say the Jurgens thing is interesting because now he's got a Pro Bowl. He's 1 for 1 as the center, and you start to get that. Now the Pro Bowl, they don't even play the game anymore. What do they do? A flag football game?
Yeah, flag football.
Yeah,
the Pro Bowl games, they do a bunch of skill things and
right.
Yeah.
But Jurgens is now 1 for 1. Are we going to be looking 12 years from now at a guy who is a perennial Pro Bowler, a possible multiple-time All-Pro? Like, pretty unbelievable. Like, the Eagles' center spot with Kelsey to Jurgens could be like the Packers' quarterback position. Like, that you've had a run of guys for 25 years of having they went from Favre to Rodgers and now to Love. That's a pretty interesting accomplishment there.
Jeff Stoutland, another feather in his cap.
And you saw that video of Stoutland, how pumped he was when Barkley got the run to get to 2,000 yards.
I mean, Mekhi Becton had a hell of a year. You can make an argument. The tackles were Lane Johnson, Penei Sewell, Tristan Wirfs. The guards were Dickerson, Tyler Smith of Dallas, Chris Lindstrom. Centers were Frank Ragnow, Detroit, Cam Jurgens. So very Detroit and Philadelphia-centric, as you would expect.
I guess the next question will be, is Zach Baun in play for the Defensive Player of the Year?
He should be. They give it – by the way, bad news on the Rookie of the Year front. Jared Verse made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, he's going to
Quinyon Mitchell did not. Not that, it has anything to do, but that kind of gives you a little bit of a highlight. And then the quarterbacks in the AFC, that's what it – Josh Allen, the starter, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. And hopefully nobody's at the Pro Bowl games because everybody wants to make the Super Bowl, and then you skip the Pro Bowl. So hopefully you don't see any Eagles down at the Pro Bowl. But those are the guys that made it, and there'll be a bunch of alternates.
Oh yeah,
that'll probably come out. Well, I'll get those.
By the time they get to the alternates, if the Eagles don't make the Super Bowl, like Tanner McKee gets announced to the team.
Yeah.
Wasn't it who got Huntley? Didn't he make it last year after starting like 3 games?
Yeah, I don't think it was last year, but a couple years ago. Yeah,
Tyler Huntley, the Ravens quarterback.
Yeah.
When he was on the Ravens, I guess he's in Miami now.
But anyway, Pro Bowl, exciting news.
Yeah.
And a bunch of Eagles. So good for those guys. I'm most happy for Zach Bond because I'm glad people recognized it. They only take 2 inside linebackers, off-ball linebackers. Fred Warner, obviously, number 1, but Zach Bond, that's a big step because it usually takes you, to get that reputation. But, corner, you're talking about Quinyon. Again, the starters are Jalen Johnson, who's the guy, and Byron Murphy from Minnesota, who's had a good year. But I think Quinyon's better. But he's got 6 interceptions, I think. So
Quinyon was 0, didn't help his cause, but that's almost better, meaning nobody throws your way. I think he got beaten, once or twice the whole season for a touchdown.
Yeah, and J.C. Horn's a very good player. Devin Witherspoon are the backups, so he's going to have to wait a little bit.
Good stuff, Mike. Thanks for joining the show today, brother. Good to have you back on the air. You're missed on the airwaves when you're not on. We appreciate you joining in today. Make sure you guys follow Mike at Mike Gill Show and listen to his show 2 to 6, Monday through Friday at 97.3 ESPN. Mike, thanks for joining the show, brother. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, everybody. See you.
Thanks, Mike.
Good stuff from Mike Gill joining us here on Birds 365. Appreciate him joining, as always. Good takes on everything that's going on, John. Interesting Pro Bowl rosters, We talked about the passing game all year, and a lot of people get upset when you talk about the passing game. I don't know why, but people get upset, and none of our passing game made the Pro Bowl, Johnny Mac. No AJ, no Jalen, no Smitty. I mean, that was AJ Brown out of the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, the starters are and should be Justin Jefferson, Amon Ross, St. Brown, which makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
The backups are Terry McLaurin, who's had a great year, and CeeDee Lamb, who's, Cowboys didn't have a great year, but he had a great year. So tough to argue. I would say AJ's better than everybody on that list, but Justin Jefferson. But
yeah,
you got to get the numbers as well.
I guess he missed a couple of games too. So I guess that goes into it as well. All right, we're gonna take a commercial break. When we get back, if you guys can believe it, we are going to deep dive and preview into Eagles versus Giants, Week 18. Who is Johnny Mac watching this weekend? Who are you guys watching this weekend? We'll have a lot of backups, and we'll run through who the potential starters could be in that game. So we'll do all that next here on Birds 365. We'll also have a little bit more playoff talk as well. Any super chats I get or we get, I will read off to John. So thanks everybody for being here this morning. Let's get to our break. Before I do that, I do want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go check them out, and you can see the promo code on your screen. It's YouTube 150. That gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of the region's top party bands, performers, and DJs as they take the stage in the heart of the casino action. Great cocktails, live music, and lively moments. It's all happening at Center Bar at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Visit livecasinophilly.com for more details and the complete list of upcoming events. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. counselor.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
We noticed that there was mold creeping into our basement about a year and a half ago, and wanted to make sure that we were getting rid of the problem permanently. We actually reached out to several different contractors to get it resolved, and actually 2 of them recommended Drytech to us as a long-term solution. Other than the noise factor, we wouldn't even know that there was work being done on the basement level. It's really been a clean process for us.
Score and save this football season on your car insurance. Before the next game, save up to 40% on your auto insurance policy. That's right, 40% savings. Call an audible this season and contact the Del Val Insurance Group. They're an advocate for you, not an insurance company. That means they'll get you the right coverage and save you up to 40%. Call managing partners Fran or Jim of Del Val Insurance, 215-354-0122, or score and save at dvigi.com. dvigi.com.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365. Hope everybody had a good New Year's Eve and is having a good New Year. Happy New Year to everybody in the chat. We appreciate all of you guys. Hit that like button for us here on Birds 365. Can we get to 200 likes today to kick this new year off strong? We appreciate all you guys being here. Closing in, guys, on the end of the NFL season. NFC playoff picture looks amazing. Going to be some great games coming up, John. Should be an amazing playoffs. I'm already getting sad, John, that football is near the end, my friend. I really are. It's already hitting me, and I got to just relax and enjoy the last couple of weeks. Few weeks.
Yeah, people should enjoy the journey more when you have a good team, but talk about it all the time. Ricky Bobby rules have taken over the sports world where it's win or else, and it's unsuccessful if you don't win. And I don't think a lot of fans understand how many things have to go right to actually win a Super Bowl. That go far beyond the most obvious that you have a really good team. A lot of things have to break your way. We talk about the dynasty. We talk about Kansas City. And, yeah, they're consistently good, and they're in a position to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. But, think about when they beat the Eagles and, the punt return. What if Aaron Cepas kicks it the right way? The blown coverages. What if they're not blown coverages? The holding call on James Bradbury. What if they keep the flag in their pocket? That's how close it goes in the other direction, and it's always that way. And a lot of stars have to align to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Same thing when the Eagles won it, despite giving up 505 passing yards. If Brandon Graham doesn't get, we talked about the Arena Football League comparison with Detroit. That was an Arena Football League game. They get the one stop. If they don't get the one stop, Brandon doesn't get his hands on that football, New England's probably going down the field. That's how small that margin of error is to get to that position.
Yep.
And that's not even talking about all the stuff that has to happen to get there for you to get there.
Let me play the bad guy for a second. John, I feel like I could take the explanation that you just gave and use that as a reason to play Saquon Barkley this week to go and get a record, because all the things have to align for the Super Bowl. Go and get the record, Johnny Mac.
Well, I admitted, and this is admitted, like, I don't understand why everyone looks at that as some kind of otherworldly accomplishment. It's like, who gives a shit is where I am. Like, I don't care. Saquon said himself, Saquon's already had an historic season. Doesn't change.
No, I didn't say that to like try and push back or create a debate.
He himself said he thinks OJ had a better season. He thinks Barry had a better season. He said that yesterday.
Yeah. He's honest.
OJ only had 14 games. He would have had the record if it were 16. Barry, again, Barry's a different kind of cat, but 335 carries to get there. Saquon, if the Eagles were a worse team, he'd already have the record.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Let's talk about who the projected starters are going to be this weekend, John. We do have a game to play this weekend. I know everybody's looking ahead to the playoffs. I am too. I'm right there with you. But let's talk about this game for a little bit. You expecting Tanner McKee to get the start? I think they're going to rest Pickett.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, Kenny's dealing with broken ribs. No reason to send Kenny Pickett out there dealing with broken ribs. So I do think it's going to be Tanner McKee time. And a lot of Eagles fans will be excited by that, because I've gotten a lot of social media feedback on Tanner McKee. And, boy, they're skipping steps with Tanner McKee. But you'll get to see him up close. And he'll get to validate you or not.
You're not going to have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith out there. So, yeah, it might look a little different this week, Johnny.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Tanner was talking about that and the difference between scout team reps and, getting actual reps with the first team offense. And, when he was out there during the game and his just eyes lit up. And when he was talking about A.J. Brown, it's a lot easier throwing to A.J. Brown than insert, wide receiver that's not even here anymore that Tanner was doing back in August. So Jacob Harris, I don't want to pick on Jacob Harris, but there's a big difference between A.J. Brown. And so, I think a lot of people don't understand. I say the worst thing in history is second team reps. I say it all the time in training camp for a lot of reasons. One, and most notably, defensive line has become a rotational position in the NFL for the most part. Offensive line is not. So most teams have a lot of defensive linemen that could play and not a lot of offensive linemen that can play. So when you get to second team reps, and this is every city, they tend to look ugly for that reason. But all people see is the game, right?
All right.
They see Kenny Pickett play poorly in the game, and they see Tanner McKee with the third and fourth stringers play well, which he did once. He didn't do well the second time. They conflate that to, oh, he must be better. And they wonder, what are the Eagles seeing that they think Kenny Pickett's better? Well, you got to add in all the context.
All right. Makes sense. John, running back, you think it's just going to be Kenny Gainwell? I think he might only get a little bit, though, right? Do you think Kenny Gainwell will play a lot?
Yeah, I think Kenny will have to play. He's one of the guys who have to. Remember, you only have 47 guys.
I know. This is where it gets tough. You can only you got to have to play some people.
Yeah. And it'll be Will Shipley. That's why Will's back. Will's cleared the protocol. So, they can elevate 2 practice squad guys. Last week, because Will didn't play, Ty Davis Price, I don't know. They're going to have to decide who they want to activate. It's not the COVID days either where you can just roll out a bunch of guys. So some guys are going to have to play, and Kenny's probably one of them.
Yeah, we'll see what he does. Jahan Dotson.
Yeah.
How many targets this week for Jahan Dotson?
A lot. Jahan Dotson's going to get an opportunity to show off. Johnny Wilson, Anaya Smith, a couple rookies as well. Yeah, that's going to be your guys. So before you expect 400 yards from Tanner McKee, understand that's who he's going to be throwing to.
Dotson and Wilson. Ugh. Anaya Smith, will he get out there this week?
Oh, yeah. Anaya will play a lot. Remember, they have tight end issues because CJ Uzama got hurt and he's on injured reserve now. So Dallas isn't going to play in this game. So you're down to Grant Calcaterra and EJ Jenkins. That's it. So Grant's going to have to play. Certain guys have to play. Yeah.
Who do you expect the starting O-line to be? Like, who's going to play center? Nick Gates?
I would think Nick Gates. Outside shot Jack Driscoll. They've been trying to give Jack Driscoll snaps at center to make him even more versatile.
I thought he'd be tackle, but I guess they have Kennard and Fred for that.
Well, that's the thing. They can play Kennard at tackle. They'll definitely play Fred. And you have Tyler Steen. He'll be a guard. And Trevor Keegan, you can play guard. So in theory, you have 3 tackles. And that's why I say you might play Driscoll at center. It'll probably be Nick, but yeah, they have a bunch of offensive linemen, so should be no concern there about the veterans having to play. The toughest guy who's going to have to play probably is Milton Williams, who's a really good player, and probably he'll be a little bit pissed off he has to play, but they don't have numbers at interior. You have Ajomo, you have Booker. Now, you can play Ajomo and Booker the whole game, but you probably need, as I said, it's a rotational position. You probably need a few snaps from Milton Williams.
We'll see what they do with him. He's a guy that's gonna get paid big money in the offseason. And Mike Gill is right. What do you think of Bryce Huff? I guess they'll get Bryce Huff some big reps in this week, right? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, that depends on his health. But yeah, if he's healthy.
I still don't know what the hell happened with him last week. He left the game early. I thought he was hurt. I thought he wasn't going to return. And then they took all the starters out and put Bryce Huff back in. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
I hurt his shoulder. So it wasn't the wrist, but he was hurt. He did leave the field for a little bit.
Yeah, but then he came back in once they took all the starters out at the end of the game.
Well, he got cleared to come back in.
End of the game?
Well, sometimes it happened. I wasn't repping exactly, but he was gone for a while and he came back, and then he ended up playing like 15 reps. But I don't know when. He had 2 reps when he got hurt.
Yeah, it was weird, John. He went out early, and then he didn't play any of the meaningful snaps. And then randomly, when they put the starters on the bench, Bryce Huff comes back into the game.
Well, yeah, he was banged up. So, and then he got cleared, and they put him back in the game. I don't think it's that weird. Probably if they didn't need him, they wouldn't have put him in there. But once you're cleared, and maybe it's in case of emergency or that type of thing, but he hurt his shoulder. So I don't think it was weird at all. But he'll play. More of how many reps depends on the wrist as well. And then they brought Chuck Harris back. He'll probably be one of the guys elevated, I would think, to take a bunch of reps. But Jalix Hunt as well has got to play a lot in this game. So Jalix Hunt's the guy who is probably going to get a whole boatload of reps.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. I'm surprised you don't think that was a little weird what they did with Bryce Huff in that game. I thought it was really weird.
No, he got hurt. I mean,
but he returned at the end of the game. What do you mean?
Well,
he got hurt, John. He got hurt in the first quarter, and then he got hurt in the fourth quarter.
And but he wasn't. He went to the locker room. He got X-rays, so that takes time.
He was back on the bench in the first half.
Yeah, but that takes time. And then at that point, you're Vic, and you're probably going in a different direction. He was going to have limited reps anyway. So, yeah, I don't think it was that. I mean, a guy goes in to get X-rays inside because they think there's something wrong with his shoulder. They look at the X-rays. They say, "Can you play?" He says, "Yes." He goes back out there. The coaches get him back out there when they want to put him back out there. I don't think it's that weird at all.
Which wasn't until garbage time when they took all the stars out of the game.
Well, yeah, because they didn't want to play him because he banged up his shoulder. And then they said, "All right, let's get."
We don't want to play you when we have better players on the field, but we're willing to play you when we have all the backups in. What am I missing here?
I don't know what you're missing. I don't know. I can't force you to understand what I'm saying. I mean, he got hurt. They probably said, "All right, Bryce is hurt. He's getting X-rays." They went in a different direction. They're blowing out a team. They're not concerned. They're getting Jalix Hunt reps. Nolan Smith's playing well. And then they say, "Oh, we want to get Nolan Smith out because we're blowing to get out. We want to get Jalix Hunt out. We certainly want to get Josh Sweat out." And now Bryce Huff is available. And that's how it worked.
So they like so that to me Bryce Huff is not very valuable in the eyes of Vic Fangio is what that means to me.
Well, that's fine. I mean, the guy's limited, playing with probably shouldn't be playing. And Vic hasn't liked him. I'm not trying to say Vic doesn't like him, but they need a fourth edge rusher.
Oh, Vic doesn't like him. He came back healthy, ready to go in quarter number 2 and didn't see the field until the scrubs were in. Vic doesn't like him.
I can't tell you exactly when he was cleared by the medical staff.
I'm just saying he did walk into the locker room. We all saw that. And then he was back and the TV showed him on the sideline in the second or third quarter.
Yeah, but understand the TV showing him because you're on the sideline doesn't mean you're cleared. Now, when they cleared him, I don't know. I know he got X-rays.
Yeah, I don't know when they cleared him. If you go into the locker room and then you come back out, doesn't that say something about your status versus if you go back and you don't get cleared?
There's a bunch of guys who get hurt in games and come back and they don't have their helmet and they watch the rest of the game.
Yeah, depending on he actually put on street clothes and then he changed back into his.
Depending on your injury, obviously, if it's serious, they're not going to let you on the sidelines. But there's a bunch of guys who sit and get injured. They get ruled out. They watch the rest of the game. Even guys with concussions have done that. It depends. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is a weird conspiracy theory. He's on a limited
theory. I just think he's
on a limited snap count to begin with. He hurt his shoulder. They probably said, "Oh, he hurt his shoulder," and they went in a different direction. And then when it was a blowout, they said, "All right, let's get Bryce out there. Let's get him some reps." I mean, what? I mean,
Bryce McHufflepuff, man. Oh my God, what a.
Well, I mean the theory of I always say that the preseason game, the crash test dummy aspect of it. That's what the NFL is. That's what guys come out. That's what this whole week is for the Eagles. I mean, they're playing guys they don't want to play, with a few exceptions. Milton, Grant. I mean, key contributors. They don't want to play their key contributor. That's the whole point of this weekend. That's the whole freaking point.
I know. I'm just saying, man, we're trying to win a game. You don't use Bryce Huff. When you go to the backups, you toss Bryce Huff in. You're feeding him to the wolves, Johnny Mac. He's a scrub, and the coaching staff is no longer trying to hide it.
You're downplaying the fact that he got hurt and he's taking X-rays to see what's wrong with him. Now people want to go down there. Well, he's made a glass route. I'll just
I'm
mute
not going
him
down
there.
that route, but I mean, a couple plays, right?
He hurt his shoulder. I don't know what to tell you. But he's on a limited rep count anyway. He's playing with a big freaking club on his
You're
wrist.
not suspecting any sort of skullduggery behavior there, like we are with like Jalen and the protocol, and nothing like that with Bryce. You think he actually got hurt? Guy actually hurt the shoulder?
No, he definitely hurt the shoulder. He went in and got X-rays. They were concerned about. They were working on him on the sidelines, looking at his shoulder. He hurt. He hurt himself. What skullduggery could they be? If there was skullduggery,
why do you act like that's such a crazy question? We just talked about how Jalen Hurts not clearing the protocol is of no concern because there's very easy ways to manipulate that, and the team did it because they have no interest in getting him out.
Because
so they do this all the time with other players getting injured.
No, that's the starting quarterback. Why that they don't want to play?
My point is that when they do this all the time with injured players and the way they manipulate and use it. Bryce Huff was back on the sideline. They didn't put him until the fourth quarter of the game.
Why would you play him at all? Why did you play him at the start?
If that's your take, then why did he go in the fourth quarter?
Well, no, I'm saying I'm trying to understand your part of the skullduggery. I don't believe that. So I'm asking you, why
played
go
2 snaps, left the game. We were told he got an X-ray that he returned in garbage time.
Why play a guy for 2 snaps? Like, that's what I'm trying to get from your thought process. Why play the guy at all? He's got a big, you could say, oh, his wrist is acting up. Why play him at all? You could watch the play. He got fucking piled up on. He hurt his shoulder.
I'm just saying it was weird that they put him in garbage time when all the other starters came out of the game. Why is it so hard to
not a starter? He hasn't been a starter for a long time. He's not a starter. Nolan Smith is the starter now. Josh Sweat is the starter. He's not a starting player. He's a backup player. Has he been a disappointment as a $51 million signing?
Oh, that's a definite. Ain't no debate about that part of it, Johnny.
He is exactly the guy going in garbage time. That's why he's playing this week. Now, he will be on limited reps because of his wrist, whereas Jelix is a full go. But, I guess now I understand. He's not a starter. That's why he came in garbage time, to get the starters out. That's what.
That's a perfectly good explanation. I'm fine with that.
Well, I thought that was understood. That's why I was so confused.
Well, he played the start of the game, so he wasn't just a scrub. I mean, he was getting rotation early in the game in the first 1 or 2 series.
Yeah, but he's the 4th guy in the rotation right now,
which is crazy for a guy,
or maybe 3rd, it depending 3-4,
which is crazy in itself to think about. The guy was brought into,
and it is a rotational position, but the guys you want out of the game are Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith.
Yeah, I understand that.
So that's why I didn't understand. I mean, he's the exact guy that would come in.
But Bryce, do you think Bryce will get significant time then this week?
No, I said he's on a limited rep count because of the wrist injury.
Okay.
What that is, 15 to 20. But if he's healthy, yeah, he'll play 15 to 20 snaps, I would think.
Bryce,
somewhere in that range.
$17 million for the week 18 guy. Let's go, Bryce Huff.
Well, that's a different conversation.
Oh yeah.
But they're going to need him. They need the 4th edge rusher for the playoffs. They're going to need him. But no, obviously Nolan Smith has lapped him. Nolan Smith is the guy now. Nolan Smith has proven himself.
You had him at 4. Who? It's obviously Nolan. It's
3 Sweat, Jalix Hunt, and Bryce.
Wow, you think Jalix is that he?
Well, because he's healthier.
Okay,
he has no limitations on him.
Fully healthy. Is Jalix Hunt now usurped?
No, I don't think the pup was fully healthy, but he's not.
The only reason I don't care about Bryce Huff sucking ass is because I'm excited about Nolan Smith turning the corner and starting to show it at a high level.
Well, that's the same thing. It's the same thing with different thing, more of a draft thing, but Andre Dillard versus Jordan Mailata.
Exactly. Yeah.
Who gives a shit? If you
The only
find
difference there is you only need, not only need, but one left tackle plays and doesn't rotate. Edge rushers is a rotation. So it'd be nice to have multiple guys that can get there.
Well, yeah, they want to get deeper.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. And they hope he can give them valuable snaps, but you're talking 15 and you're talking hope. And the hope did not pan out against Dallas because he got hurt with a shoulder. Not that he would have played well. I have no idea, but he did get hurt. And then they cleared him to come back in the game. Happens all the time.
Bryce Hufflepuff. I'm done with this guy. I'm freaking done with this guy. John, linebacker. We expect to see a little bit of Jeremiah Trotter Jr. this week.
A lot of Jeremiah Trotter Jr. A lot of Oren Burks. Probably play the whole game if they can, make it through.
I wish we had Ben Van Sumeren for this game. I'd like to see how they would use him in a game like this.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah, you could use him all over the field, kind of. I mean, he's a versatile guy.
Yeah. You see more fullback, and I think he's got a chance to be a good linebacker still.
You don't think Nakobe Dean will be out there because he missed last week? Because he was like the one guy who practiced yesterday.
Yeah, talking to Nakobe yesterday. He seems fine, but no, they don't want Nakobe. He might have to dress
but not play. I got you.
Zach might have to dress because you have such a limited numbers at linebacker. They might elevate. He might be the other. Dallas Gant might be the other elevation. But if you think about it, you can only not dress 7, 8 guys, whatever it ends up being. So a lot of guys are going to have to dress. And because of their youth, Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean are probably have to suit up, but I don't expect either to play much at all.
What about Quinyon Mitchell, John? You expect him to play this week?
Again, he'll be dressed, maybe, because Cooper as well. But you have outside, you have Kaylee, you have Isaiah Rodgers, you have Eli Ricks. So I don't think Quinyon's going to have to play.
Yeah. So he might be dressed, but he probably won't get a lot of reps. You're probably seeing Keely, Isaiah Rodgers, and
and Avonte Maddox and Tristan McCullum at safety.
This is gonna be a bad football. This exercise is making me realize.
Cooper's an interesting one because he plays nickel. They don't really have a backup nickel. Their backup nickel would be Avonte, but he's going to be playing safety. So Cooper might have to play a little bit, but
Boda says we could easily lose this game. I agree, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Lose this game. They could lose this game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
And in fact, I think they might lose this game if they play nobody. I think they should lose this game. To be honest.
Yeah, I agree. So the Maddox is interesting because you think they're going to use him as a starting safety this week?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you're a little bit low on bodies. That's where you might need Cooper DeJean or Quinyon Mitchell if somebody goes down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a bunch of guys are going to have to dress. And the younger guys are going to be the guys who have to dress. How
many players, John, can we actually not have dress? Like, what's the rule on that? What's the ruling on
47 is game day. So 53, six guys don't have to dress. And obviously, but you're going to rule some guys out injury wise. Anybody who's got a hangnail as well.
Yeah.
Jalen obviously is not going to dress. I don't think Kenny is probably going to be ruled out. So, they'll do it the best they can. But again, it's not as everybody, Dan Campbell talking about it, and everybody seemed to, that's a good point. Like we haven't been talking about that for 50 years. I have 90 players in the preseason. So when you say preseason environment, you can't just roll out a bunch of guys on the practice squad. You can only elevate 2 guys from the practice squad. So a lot of guys are going to have to dress, but if everything goes to plan, they're not going to play. But a lot of
James Bradbury this weekend?
No.
boy, their commitment to not waving
You
the
can't
white
just.
flag.
You would have to activate James off injured reserve and give him a 53-man roster spot.
Right.
Like I don't think people understand you can't manipulate this stuff that way.
Their commitment though to not waving the white flag on James Bradbury is admirable. I'll say that.
I've seen James a couple times this year. He's a pro. He's a good dude. Yeah,
You think he's thinking like retirement, or is he going to try and go somewhere?
I think he wants. I think he wants to play.
Full year on the bench, though, man. You're in like no man's land. You know?
I know.
You
I think the Eagles did him a disservice. But
Yeah,
maybe he's just happy getting his money. I don't know. Yeah, but he can still play in this league, and the Eagles should have just released him. But
yeah, I like him. I mean, I like him as a dude. I mean, he had ups and downs here in Philly. He was real good in 22. Obviously, had the crazy end with the Super Bowl and the hold. So, he's one of those controversial players in the city. But I think they
shouldn't be. He was a second-team All-Pro that year.
Yeah, but you know how it ended. I mean, people. You're not going to
got caught.
You're just going to forget that, John, because he was a second-team All-Pro.
Well, they should. I mean, if he wasn't there, they wouldn't have been in the Super Bowl. He had a great season. That's all I'm trying to say. That's what I was talking about before, in that, people don't regard making the Super Bowl as an accomplishment anymore if you don't win it, which is weird to me. If they don't have James Bradbury playing at that level that season, they don't go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, he got caught for holding in the Super Bowl. All right. Doesn't mean he wasn't a great player for the team. Now, last year he was bad. He got moved around. They put him in the slot, all that kind of stuff, which, we talked about with Sean Desai ad nauseum. So, that's been his history. One good year, one bad year, one good year, one bad year. I think he would have been good this year. I said it, if they needed him, they didn't need him, because Quinyon and Cooper hit the ground. But he's a great zone corner, and Vic would have used him properly. But we'll never know because they haven't needed him.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with him. John, I got a question. There's a comment in the chat, all right, and you're not going to like it, but I do want to talk about it because I think it's inevitable.
Shocker.
I think it's inevitable. C. Mills checks in. What's up, C? He says, are the Eagles going to regret not letting Saquon beat the record? And when I say is inevitable, I say inevitably in a certain amount of time into the future, whether it's 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, this organization, and specifically the player Saquon, and I think specifically the head coach Nick Sirianni, will look back and wish they got there. I'm not saying they made the wrong decision. I'm just saying hindsight vision is always 20/20. You're probably going to look back. I don't know how the playoffs have gone yet. We haven't seen it unfold yet, but you're probably going to look back and say, damn, man, I wish we made that history. It was right there in front of us.
I not only don't think the Eagles will think that way, I don't think fans will think that way a month from now. I don't think they'll give a shit. Yeah.
We'll see in a month.
This is so overblown. I don't even understand it. To the point it's so overblown. Like Mike and I tried to explain. I've tried to explain all week. I'm glad, Mike, we didn't talk about it. I'm not shocked that he saw it the same way. Like, this whole thought process that this record was some kind of part of American society and sports is such bullshit. Like, even these people, if they're honest with themselves, they know damn well back in August they didn't know what this record was. And half of them don't know who Eric Dickerson was. And I get all, and now people are talking about, and I already said I expect Saquon to be a Hall of Famer. And like, this is the lexicon of him making the Hall of Fame. I mean, yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it a little bit, even a little bit.
I know Saquon's going to regret it, but he didn't have much of a say anyway.
I mean, I don't think he is. I don't think he is. Knowing that guy, like he's, as I said, those are not my words. Those are his words. You know, when he said Eric's got the record, but OJ had a better year. Barry had a better year. Those are the two he mentioned.
Yeah, but nobody's denying that. You're talking about finding your place among those seasons.
He's already got his place among those seasons. There's 9 people in the history of the game that
Doing
have
8th
done
on
it.
the list or 9th on the list is not the same as
Well,
breaking
OJ's
back.
what, 9th on the list because it was 2003, and he might
That's
be
the
the best
immortality,
player.
though, John. As a running back, as a player, as a
Because
prideful
OJ, for
person.
different reasons, and we all know OJ, the stuff
Yeah,
we're
right.
talking about OJ. But long before OJ did what he did or did what he allegedly did, he was one of the most famous football players that ever lived.
John, did OJ do it?
Yeah, I think OJ did it. But
I think
long
OJ did it.
before OJ did what he's alleged to have done, he was one of the most famous, arguably the most
he
famous
was, yeah.
football player that ever lived. Became a movie star, did all the commercials, yada, yada, yada. You know, is Eric Dickerson a bigger star than OJ? Again, it's hard to do. You can't do it.
No.
Is Eric Dickerson a bigger star than Barry
OJ?
Sanders? No.
Yeah.
Is Eric Dickerson a bigger star than Adrian Peterson? No.
I would say no.
Is Eric Dickerson even a bigger star than, for old school people like me, is he a bigger star than Earl Campbell? No. No. It is so, like, it ain't Babe Ruth's record. Not people in Philadelphia in 2024 want to make it that to bolster up the Eagles and Saquon, their favorite player right now. It ain't that big of a deal. I'm sorry. It isn't. It isn't. And the fact that this, of all cities, is trying to argue that this is bigger than a Super Bowl, and I'm not saying a lot of people are, but there's a few. I mean, that is fucking hilarious. When that guy, that commenter from yesterday, was that yesterday's show? Who won the Super Bowl in 1992?
That was a couple shows ago. I think that was might have been the New Year's Eve show.
Trust me, if the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 1992, you would fucking know it.
I know. Yeah, that is very true. That is very true.
I mean, even compare those two things, a Super Bowl championship and the rushing title, the all-time rushing single season record. Are you fucking kidding me?
I still want it.
Well, that's the selfish nature of people. Yeah, you always want everything. I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming everybody. Wants everything. Everybody wants their cake and they want to eat it. Everybody wants everything. We're a gluttonous society. But
yeah, I don't think I do think though. I don't think this is an answer as black and white as some make it seem. Like you rest the starters doesn't mean you're going to the Super Bowl. If you do it the other way, it doesn't mean you're going to get hurt and you're not going to go to the Super Bowl. Like I think there is some gray area to it.
Well, but those same people seem to say, well, if he plays, he's getting the record.
Yeah, which I also agree is not a guarantee. 101 yards is not nothing.
I mean, he played he's been a second half runner this year.
Yeah, I think the averages are like just under 50 or right around 50 in the first half and like 75.
If he's got 50 at halftime and you're still fighting for it, and this is such an easy decision for them. Such an easy decision for them. And again, I pointed it out, and I know people don't want to listen to it. All these names, OJ was on a team that wasn't good. Had a great offensive line and a great running back. Eric Dickerson was on a good team, not a great team. Barry Sanders was on sometimes less than great team, sometimes less mediocre, sometimes a little bit more than mediocre, but never great. Same thing with Adrian Peterson. Sometimes Tennessee, sometimes they had some really good teams with Derrick Henry, but very limited. very rare you have somebody doing this on a great team, on a team that's a legitimate Super Bowl contender, for the reasons that you have to do it. In many ways, that validates if it makes Eagles fans happy, because he'd already had the record if they didn't blow out so many teams and he wasn't sitting in the fourth quarter. He'd already had the record if he didn't let the young boys eat against the Giants. Who cares? 2005 versus 2106. Who cares? Who cares?
NFL immortality, John.
My God. Well, I can't convince. You know me in statistics. It's a fucking waste of time.
Definitely
a fucking waste of time.
But I kind of view them like PFF, where you're like, sometimes they're wrong, but generally, like, if somebody has insane statistics, I'm not saying that they're everything, but they're generally right that they're having a good year. That's kind of how I try and view.
Well, he's having a great year.
That's what I mean. So I'm like, I'm not in love with the statistics, but the statistics say he's having a great year. He's having a good year. Most of the time I feel like.
Well, yeah, you're not a bad player if you run for 2,000
like Jalen threw for 2,900 yards this year. He didn't have his best season. I'm not in love with the stats, but the stats are accurate in that it wasn't Jalen's best season as a quarterback.
Yeah, everybody in the 2,000-yard club is pretty fucking good.
Yeah, they are. That's for sure.
And that's what I'm saying. The difference between 2005 and 2,106 is just validation. It's just this made-up bar. It's not going to mean he has the best season. It's not going to mean he's better than OJ or better than Barry, just as he said Eric wasn't better than OJ or better than Barry. But it means he's really fucking good. So just accept that and go for the Super Bowl. And no, nobody's guaranteeing anything. He's not guaranteed to get the record if he does play. The Eagles aren't guaranteed to win the Super Bowl because they're resting players.
I will agree. That's an unfair way to look at this. If they don't get to the Super Bowl, we can't just look back and be like, oh, they made the wrong decision. Because
all you're trying to do is increase your odds for the ultimate goal. That's it.
I'll tell you what better happen though, John. They better be fresh in that playoff game. First one.
Well, I mean, I don't know how you measure that. So
yeah, you don't. That's right. It's a good point. All right, here we go. We got a couple super chats here, John. Jake Perfect says, why is it a problem that fans want a record even if they knew nothing about it?
I didn't say it was a problem.
Can't deny it's cool. 99% of records are broken without trying to break them.
And nobody's saying it wouldn't be cool if it happened organically. I'm saying the Eagles are trying to increase their odds to win the Super Bowl, and it makes sense. I've said it numerous times if you listen to the show. If they were 9-7, they'd be going for the record. Undoubtedly.
Yeah. Jay follows up and he says, I agree with John most of the time. Not this time. All reporters say it isn't a big deal. Would have been the first to make reports on it. Yeah, but Jay,
it wasn't a big deal.
Having an opinion is different than giving a report too. Right. No shit, they would make a report on it, dude. It's fucking history. I mean, obviously they would make a report on it. John's allowed to have an opinion on it too, though.
Yeah. I didn't say it wasn't a big deal. I never said that. I said I don't know what the difference is between 2005 and 2106 other than people making it to be more than it is. He's already had an historic season. Would it be cool if he did it organically for the fan base? I'm not denying that. I'm not a fan. So to me, yes, I acknowledge it doesn't really matter to me. I already know he's great. I already know he's had a great season. Beating up on one of the worst teams in football to chase a record does not impress me. As I stated a million times, long before this record ever came into people's thought process, Nick Sirianni has said it multiple times as people turn off when he uses his cliches. Ultimate team game, ultimate team game, ultimate team game. This record is not only Saquon's, it would be Lane's and Landon's and Jalen's and Cam's and Mackay's and Jordan Mailata and everybody else. Jalen Hurts in the +1 aspect is a big part of it. Saquon Barkley's had an historic season. He's welcomed into 2,000-yard club by everybody. There's only 9 people in it. They have bigger goals. They're not the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
They're not the mediocre Minnesota Vikings. They're not the mediocre Los Angeles Rams. They have bigger goals. So they're not going to chase some single season record. Mark Gastineau had the sack record for years. Go chase it. All right. Michael Strahan has it now. He's pissed off about it.
Joe Shane's pumped about this. Someone points out in the chat. Joe Shane and Eric Dickerson. They're the biggest Nick Sirianni fans in the world now.
Well, Joe Shane's going to lose his job anyway.
I don't know.
To the point, I also, that, and I've known this long before he said it yesterday, but I'm glad Saquon said it because, people outside the building think he hates the Giants. The vast majority, he does hate Joe Shane. He'll never admit it, but he does.
He definitely.
The best people on the Giants, he loves. The trainers, the strength coaches, the coaches he worked.
Yeah.
He loves them. He loves those people. And he verbalized it yesterday. I got nothing but love and respect for the guys over there. There's a lot of trainers, coaches, and strength guys that help me out with my ACL, help me out with my injuries. And I wouldn't be the player I am today without those guys. People are so hyper-focused on, he wants to get revenge. He loves people. My buddy Pat Leonard, who covered the Giants, he plays chess with them in the locker room. He loves them.
Yeah, that's how Saquon is, and I respect that part of it for sure. Brian Pumper says, don't care about a record. I just care about giving this pipsqueak Hurts the best chance to win, which is a healthy and recharged Saquon.
We got it. Did anybody think Jalen was going to make the Pro Bowl? Was anybody upset by that?
Well, I just think it might bring in the forefront the AJ and Devontae want those accolades for their career. I know it's selfish, but I'm saying you always say
everyone.
There's human nature, right? Like where AJ.
I think everybody wants accolades,
right?
And Saquon's he's in the Pro Bowl. For those who didn't hear. Obviously.
Wait, somebody put in the alternates. AJ, Mailata, Q, and Sweat were announced as alternates.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's that little, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously AJ's going to be an alternate. Obviously, Sweaty's had a good year. Who say those names again?
AJ, Mailata, Q, Sweat.
No Mackay. That surprises me. But yeah, they got a lot of good players. The Eagles.
Marchetti says Mailata will be all Pro Bowl voting.
I agree.
It is.
He should be an all pro.
The voting is a joke, but that doesn't change that people want it because they use that for contract incentives or negotiations. Agents use it. Like you got to remember, there's a player element to this.
Well, the group that was announced today is meaningful. The group that will be in Orlando is not meaningful because then you'll have third alternates and all that kind of stuff. The group that was announced today is meaningful, and I put up. The biggest snub is unquestionably Jordan Mailata. And part of that is, there's a bunch of good tackles in the NFC. One of them's Lane. Penei Sewell, obviously, is going to make the team. And who we should have made it over was Tristan Wirfs, who's really good in Tampa Bay, in my estimation.
Yeah.
And has been a long time Pro Bowler and has the reputation. So sometimes, it takes a couple years. But Jordan Mailata has been the best left tackle in football. That's another thing. They don't differentiate between left and right. They just take the best.
Right. They just take tackles.
Yeah. Which I don't agree with either.
I agree. Yep. I don't agree with that either.
To be honest, Cam Jurgens shouldn't be a Pro Bowler, probably. Now, maybe I have to look at it. Certainly, I mean, he's the second. Ragnow is the starter and should be. Eric McCoy hasn't played enough. He got hurt early in the season. I'm trying to think of the other. Most of the good centers are in the AFC. Creed Humphrey, Tyler Linderbaum, even Zach Frazier's a rookie. He's had a good year. But there's a couple guys I'm looking, guys you're not going to know. Drew Dahlman in Atlanta's having a good year, but he's been hurt. So maybe he should be the second one. Froholt in Arizona has probably played better. But yeah, there's some give and take. And, that's Jeff Stoutland's going to get Cam Jurgens over the hump, but there's so many good tackles. And there's not as many good centers. So, but yeah, there's no doubt that Jordan got snubbed. He's been, but he did miss 4 games as well. And I do expect him to be an All-Pro because Lane brought that up yesterday. There were a couple years Kelsey didn't make the Pro Bowl and was All-Pro because the All-Pro voters are a little bit, better in tune with things.
Yeah, I agree. All right, John, let's see what's on the agenda for the day. We're a little over time here.
Practice today, locker room. Talking to a bunch of guys who, going to play against the New York Giants.
Who are you most looking forward to talking to?
Well, I already talked to a bunch of guys yesterday. Saquon, Lane. So we got.
Who are you looking forward to talking to today? Anybody?
No, not really.
Not Bryce Huff.
Already talked.
Bryce, what happened in quarter 2 and quarter 3 when you came back from the back? What happened, Bryce?
Maybe Jalen Carter. Yeah, fine. I don't get. I get your thought process on that less than I get the people obsessed with this record.
Bryce Huff wants out, John. He's already like, don't even fucking play me out there. I don't even want to play for you guys anymore.
Yeah, he definitely got hurt. That I can confirm. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, so now you've gone deeper down the rabbit hole. So now you think he didn't want to play and left.
John, I'm open to any and all Bryce Huff conspiracy theories.
Oxum's razor, what?
As Flexion says, Huff ain't puffing.
Oxum's razor is what I always say. Simplest explanation is the correct one. He got hurt.
Yeah, but this Eagles organization they operate in the shadows a little bit. You know that.
No, he got hurt. I say it's easy for players to manipulate Malcolm Jenkins, by the way, taught me this way back. It's easy for players to manipulate the concussion protocol. And the Eagles are doing that with Jalen Hurts because they don't want to play him.
They're trying their hardest to hide how much of a bust Bryce Huff is, but then they needed him because they were resting other guys.
Why are they hide? If they hide, they kept him on injured reserve. They wouldn't have brought him back.
Yeah, they brought him back. He played 2 snaps. They put him on the bench and said, all right, fourth quarter, it's your time. We're up 38-7 or whatever the hell the score was.
I mean, all you do.
Go ahead, Bryce. It's your time to shine, kid.
Did they also fake his wrist surgery?
No, I'm just fucking being facetious, joking around, Johnny. Right. I'm not a fan of Bryce Huff.
Well, that's understandable, but he did get hurt in the game. Did get x-rays. That is confirmed. And he was cleared to come back.
All right. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Good show today, man. Travel safe down to NovaCare. We'll be looking forward to talking to you tomorrow on a Football Friday. We'll be breaking down
Week 18, meaningless Football Friday. More record talk. Let's close the book on the record. Can we?
We can close the book on the record, but I'm not ready to close the book that I don't think this 3 weeks off isn't going to affect Jalen Hurts. He stunk last time he came off missing multiple games.
Well, they stink at the start of games anyway, so. What's
Is that a buy? Is that a good enough excuse though? All right, you already stink, so let's just make you stink.
They actually were showing some signs of life early in games. So
yeah, they had 21 first quarter points versus the Commies.
Yeah, but for the majority of the season, their starts have been ugly. And it might be ugly, but they'll get into it. They've been a second half team anyway. Look at Saquon's numbers.
Good stuff. Johnny Mac, good show, man. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Hit that like button on your way out. A lot of fun today. We appreciate you guys. John, we'll catch you tomorrow on Birds 365.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.